ocean. And I've been saying this for a year, but circumstances with the ocean and boats and ships and seafaring vessels, weather, all of it. But here's the real thing. I really do believe that what could happen is we could begin to see war games taking place in the ocean. Okay, this is something that I've been praying about even this morning, or just the last little while here, is games that could begin to break out with the ocean, and especially with ships and vessels of war. But you're going to start to see that games that break out in the ocean and testing each other's metal, and it could even lead to some conflict. And I believe that's happening. So we need to be praying about these things and begin to step forward.
Just days after the latest altercation among Filipino and Chinese ships in the West Philippine Sea, leaders of Australia and the US speaking out. Their joint statement released during the state visit of Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese in the US. The two nations expressing strong opposition to what they call destabilizing actions in the South China Sea, including meddling with Philippine maritime operations in Ayungin or Second Thomas Shoal. Both putting emphasis on the 2016 South China Sea Arbitral Award while expressing concerns on China's expansive maritime claims. President's comments come as one of America's biggest aircraft carriers, USS Ronald Reagan, is visiting the Philippines. This 97,000-ton and nuclear-powered warship is part of the U.S. Navy fleet deployment in the Indo-Pacific. Filipino journalists, including a team from CNN Philippines, join a tour of the USS Ronald Reagan while transiting northern Philippines on the way to Manila.
Before we go into it, the ships and ships that were at sea that I saw the Lord holding them back. And it almost sounds like it was an invasion narrative trying to come across the sea. Now I'm realizing they're colliding at sea. They're doing war games at sea. There's much happening around this narrative, and most of the United States is asleep to this fact. We think it's just another work day, another time on the job. Things are happening. I got to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, if you're not paying attention, we are in World War III right now. We're there. Okay, we're there. It just hasn't escalated to the point where it's on our doorstep because it hasn't been talked about yet. If they talked about some of these events to the level they've talked about the way things are happening over in that nation where we're sending billions of taxpayer dollars, if they even begin to mention, boy, this is a sign of war, this is World War III, then they would begin to, the populace would start embracing it. Instead, it's a silent where they just begin to do things and they're trying to keep everybody distracted. But we are in a new space and time, a new dimension of what God is calling us to do. And we need to rise up in it. Let's very quickly look at this clip on what's going on at sea. I prophesied this. I've been seeing it for 2 years and now it's happening. So we got to pay attention to it. What is the Lord saying through this? Let's look.
Military tensions are growing between the U.S., China, and the U.S. Navy sent destroyers to the coast of Alaska last week.
Alaska.
Nearly a dozen Russian and Chinese warships.
That's what the Lord's prophesied to us.
Patrolling in nearby international waters. CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang has more on what it all means. Weijia, good morning.
Good morning, David and Anne-Marie. Alaska Senator Dan Sullivan called the size of the Chinese and Russian joint operation unprecedented. He said that the U.S. sent 4 Navy destroyer ships near the Aleutian Islands in response to those 11 Chinese and Russian warships near U.S. waters. The U.S. Northern Command says the Chinese and Russian patrol remained in international waters.
But they're saying a lot. This is saying a lot. When they're doing this, they're making a statement. They're saying, we have power, you can't stop us. And they're doing it at Alaska because they're saying, we're right by you. We can do whatever we want, and we are an alliance. This is a statement of military might. It's also a statement about financial might, okay? Because these two nations are some of the leading voices in what's going on regarding the BRICS nations, right? And they're coming together, and these players are cutting out the United States out of currency. This next year could get wild. Now they're trying to limit food, and I gave a prophetic word 3 years ago about food shortages. We gave a prophetic word. We haven't seen this yet, but I sensed the Lord was saying this to us, that there will be a time where there are blackouts that happen. I believe that's going to be involved with players, wicked players on the ground, so to speak, that are in here because the borders are down, and then we're going to see all these other areas happening. Now, here's the thing. This is where we recognize the Spirit of the Lord has told us these things in advance. Let's finish this video, and I'm going to give you some hope, okay?
The show of force is a reminder
Look at this.
of the cooperation of Chinese
Right here.
and Russian militaries, as well as how close the countries are to Alaska. A similar
They believe
US
Alaska belongs to them. Let's keep going.
exercise took place last year in September. The U.S. Coast Guard encountered 7 Chinese and Russian ships near Alaska, all in a single formation. China and Russia have increased their ties in the
Would never have allowed that. 45 would have never allowed that. Any president that wasn't bought out by the system or owned by the very players coming and knocking on the door would never have allowed that. And they wouldn't have dared to do it with him there. Let's finish.
over Taiwan and Ukraine, making situations like this more alarming. In a statement to other media outlets, the Chinese embassy said this was part of an annual cooperation plan and has nothing to do with the international and regional climate. David and Anne-Marie?
Thank you.
Well, just because you say it, I guess it makes it true. Let's take a look here. Praise God. Let me say something. This is important. I have great hope in the middle of all this. I really do. I believe we've got one more round. I've had this word for some time about ships coming across the sea. I've shared this word since the beginning of the year. It's been a very great concern for me that ships would come across the sea. They'd begin to collide on the water. They'd begin to do play, war games, all of this. And I believe this is only going to increase. And now we're actually seeing it. And I said back in the spring, I saw the Lord's hand holding much of that back, holding the ships back. I believe that the ships are now going to go. I still sense peace. I sense peace in it all, that God is not going to allow certain things to manifest to the fullness they want to. But I see a couple things, and we need to pray about this. And when I say I see it, I really sense this. I sense this can all stop in a day. In one day, in a moment. And I believe the Lord will allow prayers and petitions to push back and bring a stopping point to much of this. And I've been very concerned about the sea, okay? Very concerned about the sea. And I believe we're going to begin to see more and more of these just appear off the coast. Here, elsewhere, but there's going to be foreign. Okay, foreign subs that show up. So as these ships and vessels are coming across the sea, I shared a word some time ago about this. I'll share this with you, and I still sense hope. I began to see these, what do you call them, oil rigs? I began to see oil rigs. Oil rigs, and I saw them at sea. Challenges going on with oil rigs, and there's challenges going on, and oil will be the conversation. And I'm telling you, more and more of this will begin to come forward. 2023, there's going to begin to be more and more people that shine lights that will start out as a flashlight, and it will turn into a blaze. Much as it was with the micro winds that accumulated into a roar, you will now see a hurricane roar coming in 23 and much more in 24. I see the strength of God beginning to rise in a populist movement and people saying no more. But I tell you, young politicians will stand up and band together. They will band together. I see young politicians banding together and beginning to push back against this, because the young lions are coming on a global scale. Watch for the storms. Every major storm over the next year and a half will be a sign of the turn of the tide. The young lions are coming.
Meteorologists earlier said super fog had heavily impacted the area just west of New Orleans around the time of the pileups. Superfog is a thick fog that develops in damp, smoky conditions and can send visibilities plummeting to less than 10 feet. Cyclone Tej, which was formed in the Arabian Sea, made landfall in Yemen earlier today. The wind is blowing at a speed of 150 kilometers per hour. Heavy rain hit Liguria, Italy's northwestern region bordering France, causing floods and landslides in several places on Monday.
recently Sidney Powell came out and she had to state that she was guilty, talking about her involvement with the 45 campaign and all that. Let's look at her statement here. Let's go right over here and let's watch what she said in this thing. And I got a lot I want to talk about with this. Let's look at this.
The right to a trial by jury.
Yes.
Do you understand that by pleading guilty, you're giving up the right to remain silent and not to incriminate yourself?
Yes.
Do you understand that by pleading guilty, you're giving up the right to confront witnesses that the state may bring to testify against you?
Yes.
I apologize. How do you plead to the 6 counts of conspiracy to commit intentional interference with performance of election duties?
Guilty.
Do you understand the nature of the charges that have been reaccused and that you would be pleading guilty to today?
I do, sir.
And you've heard all the rights that the state has gone through that you would waive by going forward with this plea. Do you still wish to waive those rights?
I do.
And are you pleading guilty today because you agree that there is a sufficient factual basis, that there are enough facts that support this plea of guilty?
She is there.
I do.
Now, without going way into this, let me look right at you again. I want to talk to you. There is so much that we've got to recognize is unfolding regarding the pressure that's on the former administration and how they're trying to push them into a corner and into a space. I believe there's a lot of pressure behind the scene that is trying to get these people to turn coat and go down these avenues. Now, in response to this, you do see that 45 came out and began to release an article that says, or they quoted him in an article talking about how she was never his attorney in the first place. She represented people like Flynn and all of the individuals at that same avenue. And so looking at this, let's just take a quick look at the response article here, how he responded to it. He responded to Sidney Powell, how she pleaded guilty. The former president weighed in on Sidney Powell's recent guilty plea in Fulton County. You recognize this. And as we're going through it, he said on Sunday that she was one of millions and millions of people who thought, and in ever-increasing numbers still think, correctly, this is the comments made about her, that the 2020 scenario was taken. He wrote on Truth Social. He added that she was not his attorney and never was, and if she was his attorney, she would have been conflicted, he said. And so that's where you're beginning to recognize this scenario. Now, in response to this also, even 45's own legal team said they're not shaken and even moved by this a little bit. Now, here's the reason I'm bringing this out, is there's so much that we could get into and begin to discuss with it. But I want to make one point, and this is really important. When you're recognizing what's actually happening, you realize they are desperate and very concerned with what is actually unfolding. In other words, when you look at the polling numbers right now, the Manchurian candidate is getting crushed, destroyed in every single swing state right now. If election were held today, if they began to say, hey, we're choosing who we're going to run with and all this today, he would get defeated hands down. Everybody knows it. It's the way it's going, and they can see this taking place, and they are very concerned. So I believe this is in part what has induced this. Okay, let me look right at you again. I want to look right at you. Induced this war is not only a cover over for the nation where the Manchurian candidate has been sending resources by the billions of our hard-earned taxpayer incomes, but he's also covering over his nefarious misdeeds there, among many other things, and people like him that are using it as a slush fund over there. And you're seeing that, and of course they're doing that. Then they have another battle that they're really enjoying, I believe, that they wanted to have happen, or they're allowing to kind of see it unfold, and that's over in Israel, of course, and the way these things are going. I believe a lot of this is to cover over their own issues, their own misdeeds, because there was legal things surmounting against the Manchurian candidate and his son and so many others in that same pool. You begin to see even just recently that it was a former president's chef that was suddenly no longer alive because he went for a swim. And you're recognizing much of this is coming together. Now, the answer or the question really should be, where are all the scenarios that were suddenly in the news a while back and now they're being wiped away? You don't see them, such as the fires in Maui, the missing kids, the battles that were happening there, the spilling of toxic issues all over our nation from train derailments, the crisis with people entering into our nation by the millions at this point, and many of them they're finding out are even Middle Eastern individuals. And you're saying, what about the women and children that they're supposedly saying are coming across, and they're not? And you're recognizing all these other male figures are coming across, and they're trying to run down that avenue. And you say, well, why? There was balloons just recently, months ago, that were circling our country, doing figure eights over military bases, so to speak, and they're going everywhere. And suddenly when you're looking at all of this and you see the narrative unfolding, you realize they're very concerned that 45 is going to really take position again. And I'll tell you what, if they were to do the actual vote today, he would win. He would win. And this is a very serious threat to them. Now, I have a sense that here's what's going to happen next. They're going to try to get this one to run. And you say, what do you mean run? They're going to try to get her to run so she can stand up. And when you say the word she, that's a lot of commentary could be made there. But let's just keep going. So there's not only this scenario, but I believe they will also bring this one in. And listen, I'm not supportive of any of this. I'm just saying this is what I sense they want to do. They want to bring this to play, and this is what will probably be the replacement picture going into this. When you're looking at the lay of the land, I believe that this is their only real play. Now, there could be a hidden figure that's going to rise up, and I sense that also. Even though the field is already being set, a hidden figure that may manifest with a surprise turn. And I believe this will be on both sides for what could take place in this coming cycle. Both sides could begin to throw out their scenario. Now, a lot of people are commenting, will there even be a 2024 choice? Will there even be the opportunity to get to this point? Are we going to be in such crisis and full-blown war that we don't even get to this? Will this even happen? And many people are commenting on it. You know, you recognize that the what do you want to say? The sickness didn't work. Everything else didn't work. They're trying to put 45 away. That's not quite working. It's being pretty successful in some areas, but it's also not working in others. And yet there's still momentum. And so they're trying crisis and everything else. And I believe that the next big thing, and this is something we've talked about, is the climate issue. And I believe this religion, which is what it really is, because it's not based on hard fact. It's based on all kinds of narratives, and I believe this is going to become the next thing that they begin to bring out. And we've talked about this before. There'll be a form of down with it, and I think they were trying to sell this narrative with Hawaii. Okay, you say, well, what do you mean trying to sell the narrative? I think that they're saying with the fires and all this, well, this is what happens when you've got all these issues going on. Well, why is it it's always just the U.S. and nations like us that have the issues with the climate thing, but they never talk about these guys. They never talk about the Red Dragon. They never talk about all the other nations like, North Korea. They never talk about all the other nations that are over in the east, the 1040 or over the Eastern, Middle Eastern nations. They never discuss those and all the destruction they're doing to the environment, but it's always a USA issue. Why is it always that climate is always here with us? Why is it always here only that they really want to put the stringent issues on this thing? And now I've got to tell you, I believe this is going to be one of their major, first of all, let's call it what it is. It's a religion. Okay, a religion, one of their major issues here. It'll be a religious issue that I think they're going to push, and they're going to say, look, just like Hawaii, I've had great concern also regarding California. and for a variety of reasons. But I also sense strongly there's coming another crisis to California, and I believe they'll shout this as they can. Man, I sense great hope in all this, you guys. I really do. I begin to sense these things. I feel what's going on. There's strength, what's happening all over the world. But I got to tell you, in the midst of it all, there's more. Now, something that's not been discussed intensely in the middle of all this. Let me go here. There's something that's not been discussed, and it was really strong in the news for a moment, and you've heard about it, and people are talking about it more and more, but it's this. It's AI. With all the distractions that are going on, you're seeing people come out against it or talk about it, but suddenly this thing has gotten quieter. Why? Because of this is taking the main stage on everything. It's getting all the attention. Soon we're going to see also get all the attention. The USA crisis that's trying to manifest, that it's also going to be, you're going to begin to see the terrors. You're going to begin to see the terrors doing things. Then you're going to begin to see, as this word we keep talking about, the 10 cities word. It's interesting other people are bringing it out. We've been prophesying this for 20 years. It's something that's been very strong, and even in 2020, we began to prophesy this from this word. And the former ministry and all the things we ran with would talk about this quite often. But you recognize that Decapolis is the part of the word, and this could be indeed, it's either symbolic or literal, but when we're talking about 10 cities burning, the Decapolis word, it's something that's taking place here. All of this is going to begin to shrink away from the crisis that is AI. Now, AI is not at its full-blown crisis state, none of this, but it is manifesting, and soon they'll begin to engage, and there will be military action that's run by this. By the AI narrative, you're going to begin to see AI will come in and say, we'll correct the financial crisis. Man, I just heard that in my spirit. They're going to say that they're going to try to use AI to correct the financial crisis. AI will come and do it, and they'll say, oh, we'll run that for you. We got this taken care of. AI will come in and begin to correct this, and this is a mistake. Okay, a mistake. Several weeks back, there's some of the leaders in the technology space went and met with government officials about AI. Let's just watch this clip from CBN real quick. Let's go over here. I want you to see this. CBN News put this out. Watch this.
The time to act is now. That is the message coming from many in Washington as lawmakers and tech executives talk about the possibilities and the potential perils of artificial intelligence. So what role might Congress play in figuring out the future? Matt Galka brings us the story now.
Let's watch Capitol a few Hill, of these
where lawmakers
conversations.
Are debating just that.
Part of the urgency comes from the rise in AI programs and their uses in everyday life, and lawmakers' desire to get out in front of the technology before it becomes too powerful to harness. The future is now, with new and sophisticated AI programs getting more powerful by the day.
Yep.
Major leaders in technology met with lawmakers on Capitol Hill this week. The likes of former Microsoft CEO Bill Gates,
Woo!
Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg,
there's a twisted
and Tesla's
dude,
Elon
Gates.
Musk met behind closed doors with a bipartisan group of senators to talk AI policy.
Yeah.
There's some chance that above zero that AI will kill us all. I think it's low, but there's some chance. I think we should also consider the fragility of human civilization.
Can I pause it? Let me comment on this. So here's Elon saying, hey, there's some chance this could happen. I think it's low, but we really need to mitigate the threats and all that. He's one of the leading people running it. He's one of the leading voices doing it. And then you see Pervy Gates and you see all these other people running around and just, these people believe that they're running the world. And I do pray for this man, even though he's connected to many things that are wicked, and you could see he's like how do you want to say it? Well, people might call him controlled opposition. There's a lot to consider with him, but I still pray because I do sense that the Lord moves on these people. The heart of the king is in the hand of the Lord, and we have to continue believing that God will make a way through this. Let's keep watching.
And if you study history, I think you realize that there's a rise and fall to every civilization. Every civilization has sort of a lifespan, so we want us to last as long as possible.
Musk is calling for a dedicated federal department as lawmakers see regulation as necessary before the technology becomes too advanced.
Regulations
here we go.
are on the table, and I believe they are a reality in this field. It's a brand new field, and I think it needs some guidance.
Huge opportunities, curing cancer, education, and huge risks. And I think that was the big tension.
I think it's so far ahead of them all.
About civilization-sized risks. Maybe not so big in terms of percentage, but very smart people have concerns about some very big risks.
The risk could include manipulating technology.
Check this out now. I want you to pay attention to this. This is where some of the risks really come in.
Technology to create fake video or audio, what's known as a deep fake, for nefarious purposes, with the potential to do anything from harming someone to influencing an election. Public hearings Thursday focused on how the government could use the technology and the need for transparency.
The threat to our civil liberties comes not from AI, but from the people who want to control it and use it to censor information.
By the way, that comment right there is the word God gave us back in 2019 at a New Year's Eve service where I began to prophesy. The Lord prophesied to us, I should say, that it's not so much about the technology, it's who's programming it. And that was the big prayer we had then. And so things we just need to consider. And I like the way Rand Paul stands up in many of these arenas because he just says it like it needs to be said. Let's keep going.
It's the corruption of power that is always the problem.
The takeaway from this week's flurry of AI activity here on Capitol Hill is that there is a general consensus that guardrails are needed, but how that gets done and what that looks like, well, those details are sparse.
People are bringing out this narrative of the UFO, and I've been prophesying about this quite a bit. You haven't heard about this as much because of all the wars and rumors of wars. They didn't need this as much, but last year they pushed this, and just a few months ago, they began to have a Senate hearing on UFOs and full disclosure on are we alone in the universe, and they came out and said no. There really is these things, and they're giving more and more disclosure, and I believe it's going to lead to ultimate disclosure. Let me show you a video, and I want to comment on it because I believe it's going to be important that you see this. Let's take a look. There's a commentator. Please forgive that. But I want you to see this because this is where things are going. And although it's a little quiet right now, we're going to see a resurgence of this UFO alien deception. And I want to talk about it. So let's watch this clip, and then I want to comment on it with us today. Watch this.
As the plane soared above an unfamiliar region in China, a passenger gazed out of the window, capturing a captivating video. A sense of awe and curiosity filled the air as the passenger's camera focused on a peculiar sight, a disc-shaped object, about the size of a small car, effortlessly gliding in parallel to the airplane, near one of its wings. The crispness of the video allowed the viewer to perceive the details of the disc distinctly. As seconds passed, an intriguing occurrence took place. The mysterious object seemed to activate a device of some sort, creating a mesmerizing effect. Space and time itself appeared to fold around the disc, as if the laws of physics were being bent to its will. The passenger's video captured the surreal moment in all its glory, a testament to an encounter that defied conventional understanding. As the object sped away from the aircraft, its velocity accelerated to a staggering 24,000 miles per hour.
Amazing. And so when you're looking at this, let me share some thoughts, okay? I need to share some thoughts because I do this, but I'm going to keep doing it because it's vital that we understand what we're actually dealing with today. Number one, this is part of what people say about these things, that these things just continue to manifest, they continue to show up. And I happen to bring my handy dandy travel board with me. And when you're looking at it, remember, these are one of what I consider three issues, three things. Okay, the UFO narrative, or they call them UAPs. I believe they're one of three things, okay? So let me draw this for you. Number one, they're a tech. Okay? And I'm going to tell you what I think that was. the one we just saw. Governments or other entities have these tech, and they utilize them. Okay? Secondly, it is something called Project Bluebeam. Project Bluebeam goes way beyond this. It's a popular term now being used over the last several years to describe when they project things up into the sky. Another way of saying this is it could be holographic technology. Okay, where they blast it up into the sky and they begin to show whatever they want. And this could also be used for, by the way, this could be for religious deception. This could be used for religious deception. It could be used for an alien invasion deception. Just think of the Spider-Man movie where he's over in, I think, London, and that giant monster appeared, and they were using little drones projecting things, and yet there was real destruction happening. There's things happening they could measure, but with their eyes, they could actually see this monster, and it was a projection. I believe they're telling us something that they have tech for. Okay, you got to consider that. Thirdly, real. And you say, real? What are you talking about? Well, I've talked with a lot of people I respect very much on this topic. I've looked into it myself. I've done homework. I'm not an expert on it, but I'm in a space where I know a lot about it now. I've been really researching this stuff. The real part is you got fallen angels. You got demons, whether it's fallen angels. We know the fallen angels, they fell and they're in gloomy dungeons who disobeyed God. So angels may be locked up. There might be that some of them are not in gloomy dungeons, but they still fell and they're able to do this kind of thing, angels, or just simply demons. Whether you believe in a pre-Adamic civilization or you believe demons come from the disembodied spirits of giants and Nephilim, or you believe demons are something else. The bottom line is these unclean spirits have access and they're allowed to do things through permission. Or, get this, it's a combination. It's a combination. And a combination could be that these real demonic entities speak to leaders in government or places of authority, and because they speak to them, they're able to tell them what they need to do and then show them technology and do all kinds of crazy things. And that's why I get into CERN and all that stuff. But the video we just saw, I told you what I thought. I would tell you what I thought it was. The video we just saw, I personally believe was this. I believe it's this, or it's simply just AI. I believe it's computer-generated graphics, and I think that they don't care whether you bust them on it or not, because nobody's going to know the difference coming soon. There is such elaborate ability to say things now and bring technology now and show images now through AI that you can hardly determine what is real and what is not. And it's only going to get more and more elaborate until the day comes you see it with your eyes out there in the sky. When you look up in the sky and you see it, Let's talk about some of this underground tunnel narrative. And I'm going to show you a clip from a film that kind of defines what we're talking about. I'm going to show you this and then we'll comment on it and I'm going to go forward. This will really help you today. Let's check this out. Here we go.
You can put your helmets on now. Firing!
Woo!
Yeah. Oh.
Okay, pay attention. What's going on?
Okay. I'm officially impressed.
Well, all right. So you made some progress with the engine. We'll grant you.
So here's what's going on. The laser blasted a hole right through the wall. Now I want to show you another clip where they're talking more about the technology they have to do things. So here you see them coming up and they're building this apparatus to dig into the earth and do all this. And listen to his comments as he begins to discuss this. And that's why I'm showing you.
This is Johnson, don't mind him. This is the prototype of the cockpit here.
Excuse me, Dr. Brazelton, when do you think the ship will be operational?
When I get my fabrication methods perfected, 10 years.
What would it take to get it done in 3 months?
The government.
$50 billion.
$50 billion.
Will you take a check?
I should use a credit card to get miles.
Yeah, use a credit card. Yeah, check. Okay, here's my point. My point in bringing this out is I believe there are people that have the capacity to do some pretty amazing things. I think we have lots of technology we don't know about. You look at guys like Nikola Tesla, you look at what happened years ago, the type of things they were able to do 2 generations ago. And then you're seeing so much of this crazy off-the-chain levels of budget that it's missing. Do you remember when Donald Rumsfeld got up after 9/11 happened and said, yeah, we misplaced, it's a few billion, we misplaced a large chunk of money, and I forget the number, but it was an astronomical number that they had misplaced right before 9/11 happened. And then that topic just went away. Now, it's interesting when you look at this type of issue that I believe it's very likely, and I'm going to go further into this, that there are black budgets that they are pouring billions and then trillions into that are the equivalent of what it would take to build a major metropolitan city such as Chicago or Los Angeles or any other place in New York, except maybe they're pouring those efforts underground. This is one thing that I think is a very real issue, and sometimes people discuss this, that they've seen it, they've been through this. There's one gentleman, I'm going to set this next clip up for you, because there's one gentleman by the name of Phil Schneider. Now this man, very controversial. There's a lot to this. I don't want to go all the way down the bunny trail. I'm going to show you just a quick snippet from him where he begins to disclose this tunnel technology, and it's exactly like how they show it here. So I showed you the movie because art is imitating what could be life here. And when Phil is talking about this, first of all, he claims that he had fallen into a hole with other agents and all this, and aliens appeared. He pulled out his gun and began to open up on one of them, and they blasted him with a laser beam, burnt his hands off. He was going around doing talks for a while, and there was so much that he revealed that later came out that it was true. This is why it's such a wild story. He claims that there are these evil entities that are stealing young people and taking them to cavernous places and feeding on them. Now, I know that's horrifying and evil and all this, and where is truth and fiction in this? Well, the truth of the matter is a normal thinking person would say that's insane. The other part is that if you get into some of this Nephilim, nefarious, fallen angel technology, when you get into different alien beings and all this, there could be something to this that's a great deception that humans are allowing, and that's where a lot of missing people go. I don't have the end-all be-all on this topic, but I'm going to get some experts on sometime where we begin to discuss it and start answering some of these issues. But let's back up from that, and here's one thing he does talk about, and that is tunnel technology. So I will show you a few-second clip just showing you him discussing this. Now, shortly after these videos were made, he lost his life saying, hey, they're going to take my life. This is what's going to happen, and I'm not going to take my own life. If it happens, you just realize they did this. So I just want you to understand that people gave their life in some ways for what this man was talking about, or he did. And it's an interesting way to look at it anyway, so I'll let you decide. I'm not trying to get you convinced of something, but there's nothing here. And the whole point of this is to point out this black budget underground issue, and I believe this is where a lot of our resources could be going to. Let's just see his comments on the tunnels. Look at this.
I don't know what's going on. You literally blast out or tunnel out or deflagrate or melt rock out. The equipment kept coming up broken. So we wanted to go down and we wanted to send somebody down there, a human observer or human observers in this case, to find out what was going on.
Can we get a still of one of the tunnels, Elijah? Is that possible? If we go back. Yeah, so here, so you got these machines. That's a cutting, digging machine that twists and goes into the rock. But there's other images of apparatus like this. This is perfect. Where they go and they dig in the tunnels, like that movie clip we were talking about, where apparently they have some type of technology that can melt the rock. They go into the rock, and the rock is melted in like a crust around them, and they can travel through rock that way. And this is how they begin to create underground tunnels that some people say span across the U.S. There's underground cities. You know, we live in Colorado Springs, and we're very near Cheyenne Mountain. Cheyenne Mountain has a known underground city and underground base. That's one we know about. And it's in national news. NORAD used to be there, or is, you know, still doing things. And it's an interesting conversation nonetheless, when you see that that's what's in the public eye. But the things they're hiding, and you see these massive amounts of money going into things, why would they do this? Well, some people debate that it could be because of elites wanting to hide underground, or this is how they travel. It leads all the way to alien speculation, whatever. And again, let me just say, there's no such thing as aliens, but there are such thing as fallen demonic entities that could be manifesting and saying, we are aliens, and people listen to it. But here's the point. The point is, our resources are going into something. And people talk about how they hear a hum in the air or the ground shaking in different places. It could be there's a lot of underground or under terrain issues where people are digging out cities, or governments or black ops entities are doing this. Now let me show you something. Now I've shown you kind of the humorous side, the entertainment side, and then I showed you Phil's commentary, showing you some clips of this, just images. Let me show you a documentary that's from a mainstream outlet that just goes into this. And we're going to kind of go with this just for a few moments. Bear with me, hang with me, because he's going to begin to talk about where some of these black budget ops go. And he uses the term billions, but trade out billions and start thinking about trillions, because I think this is a real possibility. Now notice, as this documentary goes on, that they do a lot of speculation. They can't land solid on anything, but that's because they're not allowed to. Let's take a look at this. Watch.
From underground nuclear missile silos, test sites, and bunkers designed to move the entire government underground, there's already an underworld right here in the U.S. But how many sites are there? To find out, I'm meeting up with Todd Harrison, who analyzes the defense budget every year. Could there be something in the budget that tells us the scope of this secret underground?
It's interesting.
What percentage of budgets eventually get seen? Very few, actually. But you can see some. If you look at the budget documents
Very
today,
few.
You can actually see which line items are going for classified programs. And there's about $50 billion out of that defense budget that is marked as being for classified programs and activities.
50 billion.
Some people call this $50 billion secret fund the black budget.
The black
Sounds
budget.
mysterious, right? I actually thought it more likely to be fodder for conspiracy theory chat rooms rather than a reality.
Is there such a thing as a black budget? There is. That's the classified budget. It's black. You can't see in there. You can't see all of the details unless you have the proper clearances. You can see lots of interesting code names like Tractor Rut. A lot of them begin with tractor. But you can't see precisely what it's been used for. What we can tell is, you know, like 40, 50 years ago, things have been declassified now. And we now know that we were investing a lot of money into figuring out how to build and operate a spy satellite.
Interesting. I'm thinking about what's happening underground. Advanced
Here we
military
go.
technology,
Pay attention.
black or otherwise. Have you ever heard of such a thing as a nuclear-powered drill? I mean, big-time drill?
That's what we talked about.
But that's not that different than a nuclear weapon that's designed to penetrate the ground before it detonates. We have those.
Sure.
They can
Understand?
take that technology.
So they can literally
through
go on the ground with a nuclear weapon that penetrates the ground before it detonates. And he's saying you can transfer that over to a digging apparatus. Okay, let's keep going.
classified programs try to apply it to the subterranean world.
Sure. Nuclear-powered drills, man. Christmas is coming.
Maybe.
Could we have spent some of that $50 billion of secret money on a nuclear drill for building a massive underground through other methods?
That's the money they can
Todd's
find.
research.
That's just the money they can find. That's the stuff they're able to look back, as he's saying, in archives and find that type of money. I'm telling you, there's so much more missing, and this is the thing. And they can't go into it here because this is a kind of a mainstream show. And the mainstream shows, they can only show so much. But if this is mainstream, imagine what we can't see that's really going on.
May not be able to confirm that just yet. But we are learning that as more and more intel is declassified, it's clear that virtually all black budget spending is for weapons and defense.
How about that?
And while we know that a lot of the military brass in the 1950s had their eyes to the sky, Paul Scharr, VP and Director of Studies at the Center for a New American Security, believes the battlegrounds of today are in the underworld.
Under subterranean.
How much is tunneling a part of the new strategy here on the home front?
The U.S. built underground command and control complexes to survive a nuclear war with the Soviet Union, but the Army's been reinvigorating that for urban warfare. We certainly saw ISIS and Al-Qaeda in Iraq go underground. The Army is preparing for more urban conflicts, and that's going to be something the military is going to have to be prepared for against major threats like North Korea or Iran that have the ability to build big tunnel complexes under these very large cities, very, very difficult terrain to fight in.
Paul says that North Korea alone has at least 4,800 underground military bases.
4,800.
And geographically, the United States is almost 100 times larger. So it makes sense that the U.S. would have hundreds, if not thousands, more underground facilities besides the ones we know about.
Now, that would be more than billions. That's more than billions, because if you're putting this kind of stuff underground all over the U.S., and people have to function there, live there, and the speculation is there could be entire mega cities down there. The Denver airport, that's a whole thing that we could get into with this. And, you know, it was interesting during the Denver airport when they had all those murals up and they had all those strange New World Order looking demonic murals of war and difficulty and gas masks and all this stuff and children and doves and swords and communists and all this stuff. And you look at it and you say, what's going on? And they really don't even know who built it. And there's all that demonic Masonic lodge junk all over it. And if you're part of the Masons, you need to repent and get out of that cult, that demonic wickedness. But here's the thing, is that they're doing this. And I went there to the Denver airport one day. I said, Heather, let's go in. They're doing something in here. And we went and toured it. We went live. I don't know where that video is. We'll have to dig it up, Elijah. But I walked through the airport and they'd removed all the murals. So those murals are down. Around the same time that they destroyed, somewhere in the same season, they destroyed the Georgia Guidestones. And this is just interesting. So there are interesting fingerprints of stuff you can see. But here he is talking about this, underground budgets. And I believe it's very likely and possible that because even during a time when they were worried about a strike of an asteroid coming near Earth a few years back, that Obama was rumored to be at the Denver airport and could have been trying to hide out. And people say, why do elites always end up there when things are getting serious? Because the speculation is there's an underground network that really has a crossroads there or a hub there. So it's something to really consider. You know, you can't prove this stuff emphatically, but you can find fragments, and especially when they're digging out financial archives leading to this conclusion. Let's watch further.
The tunnels, the undergrounds, have always given a fighting force a massive advantage. It's only going to get larger now that it's easier to build these things on a much bigger scale. So we've got to be ready.
That's right. There's no question that underground is going to be part of warfare in the future. And certainly the U.S. Army has been investing heavily in finding ways to prepare for that.
America has always been in competition with both our enemies and our allies.
That's interesting.
From the space race to the nuclear arms race. If someone else has it, the U.S. wants a bigger and better version. So if other countries are building thousands of bases connected by elaborate underground tunnel systems, it seems obvious to me that we've got a whole lot more than we know hiding in the underworld.
Of course we do. So without going way into it here, I want to show you just a little more. Let's take a few more views of this. I want to watch just a little more of this video, but you recognize, of course, we have more going on underground than they're showing us. Of course, there's more happening, but I have to speculate, and not just speculate. I actually believe, because I have a sense in my spirit about some of this, that they truly are building more than we realize underground for some type of cataclysmic event, a black swan, something like that. So what we need to talk about is the fact that there's not only underground things that they show and that we recognize, but there is, as I've been saying, hidden budgets, black budgets that are tied to all of this. And I just got to say to you, it's important that we recognize some of these things. Why? Because there's an agenda afoot. We know the Antichrist spirit's coming. We know these things are trying to manifest.
The surveillance footage that captured the moments leading up to, during and after the tragic earthquake in Morocco, which has so far claimed over 3,000 lives, showed an unusual light phenomena. Triggering bursts of blue light in the sky were captured by security cameras in parts of Morocco minutes before the powerful earthquake. These unverified videos of strange lights flashing in the sky above Agadir in Morocco hours before the devastating quake have baffled the onlookers.
Wow.
Some have suggested that the lights could be UFOs, while others have speculated that they may be earthquake lights, a rare phenomena that is believed to occur in times of seismic stress. However, the cause of the lights remains unknown, and scientists are trying to determine whether earthquake lights even exist. The videos of the lights have gone viral on social media, sparking a frenzy of speculation.
It looks like a
about their
craft
origins.
is turning.
Some people have suggested that the lights could be UFOs, while others have speculated that they may be caused by lightning, St. Elmo's fire, or other natural phenomena. However, there is no scientific evidence to support any of these theories. Another possible explanation for the lights is that they may be earthquake lights. So, what exactly are earthquake lights? Earthquake lights are a rare phenomena that is believed to occur in times of seismic stress. Nevertheless, there is no conclusive evidence to elucidate this mysterious phenomena. Earthquake lights have been reported in association with earthquakes of all magnitudes, but they are most commonly seen before or during large earthquakes. The lights can appear in a variety of shapes and colors, including blue, white, red, and yellow. They can also be seen at different altitudes from the ground to the upper atmosphere. The exact cause of earthquake lights is unknown, but scientists believe that they may be caused by electrical discharges in the Earth's crust. Friedman Freund, professor at the SETI Institute or NASA Ames Research Center, who examined 65 accounts of potential earthquake lights, proposes a complex form of static electricity as an explanation. He theorized that the friction generated when tectonic plates rub against each other might produce sufficient electrical current to trigger a luminous discharge, thus accounting for the brilliant flashes.
Interesting.
The United States Geological Survey approaches these occurrences with caution, acknowledging the divergence of opinions among geophysicists regarding the validity of individual reports of unusual luminosity near the time and epicenter of an earthquake.
How about
Other
that?
plausible explanations for these luminous bursts include the possibility of early tremors jolting power lines, resulting in electric arcs. Despite the uncertainty, the possibility of a connection between these luminous flashes and earthquakes is not entirely ruled out.
Now, please, if you would, break down what you found with this.
The Earth's core has a magnetic and electric power that functions across even crazy. So that's how electricity works. The UFOs, aliens from other planets on our universe. However, they do touch from another realm. They do touch from another portal. But we have to run back to what the Word of God says. And when you ask the question in Genesis 1:27, when God made us, mankind, in His, we are the only creatures He ever so crafted in this Goldilocks period.
What you're talking about is Earth is a perfect Goldilocks picture, and it's kind of a scientific term that you got to have a perfect place where everything can be developed, and Earth meets those requirements. But when you're talking about free moral agency, Gabe, and people, really just people that are in charge of anything in this natural world, that means there are gatekeepers called human beings that can either open up the realm of the spirit from the dark side or the light side. And whatever they choose to do or cooperate with by their behavior, their actions, what they're meddling with, will open up these things. Now, if you got people in dark scientific communities, if you got people that are in dark areas of society really practicing scientific witchcraft, where they're opening up these veils, so to speak, through areas like CERN, which we've talked about, we'll probably touch on again, what begins to happen is you're allowing things from the other realm to come in. Gabe, we're redoing the Tower of Babel in Genesis chapter 11 all over again, and that is what we're seeing in some of these areas. I believe that is what is allowing some of this UFO narrative. That's what's allowing some of this crazy stuff and signs in the heavens. I saw Israel and I saw them marching. When they advance and when they do this, when they march and they advance, it begins. You can take it as a sign that it'll begin the next phase of this WW3, this next phase of difficulty, the next phase of global turmoil is going to be triggered when Israel advances and they don't back up. On the heels of all of this, there is indeed going to be a great, good move of God in you, we are in the signs of the times. We're getting closer and closer to the return of Jesus. And when you begin to see all these signs, Matthew 24 says it so clearly that we had to lift up our eyes and look to the heavens because the Lord is coming soon. He's coming soon. And more than ever before, I believe that Jesus is Lord and he's returning. These days, there's a lot of smoke on the topic of angels and spiritual encounters. I don't know if you're like me, but I like results when it comes to the things of God. That's why I believe the Spirit of the Lord had me write this book, Servants of Fire. This is a last days prayer manual of prophecy, intercession, and angelic activity that really will get results based on the Bible and real horsepower. I encourage you to get your copy today at josephz.com. Well, I'd like to give you an update on the building project, where we're at, how it's going. As many of you know, we've acquired a brand new building. We're calling it the World Broadcast Center, and we acquired it for 1/4 of its total value. It's an amazing gift from God, and we're so thankful to you and many of you who are watching, standing with us, whether you're a partner or a viewer. We encourage you. I would like to simply ask you if you would help us move the ball down the field. Right now, I'm meeting with our team, Josh Coley, many of the leaders are helping us remodel. We're getting experts in to really build the blueprint of where we want to go. This building will include 2 major studios, meeting space, executive offices for our team, plenty of parking for the style and size of studio meetings we want to do. And I got to tell you, it's just the tip of the iceberg. It is a gift from God that we got this. I'm blown away at what the Lord has done. It is a wonderful thing and it's marvelous in our eyes. If you're interested in helping us get this building paid in full by the end of the year, we sure would appreciate that. We're believing God for your victory, your breakthrough, and every person that sows in this, that you will have great increase in your life. Well, I am so thankful you're here. You know, this ministry is expanding. We are growing, and it is to the glory of the Lord. And I want to say something to every partner here, whether you are a recent partner or been with us a very long time. From the bottom of our heart, thank you. Partners, because of you, we're taking territory, we're building new media all the time, we're advancing, we're putting out written materials and giving away content all over the world. And we're so grateful to you for it. You send us on journeys that cost nothing to the people who are bringing us in. And I want to say simply to you, thank you. Now, if you want to join our partner family and you're watching, I encourage you to do so today. You go to josephz.com or you can text the keyword GIVE to 719-259-0029. If you join our partner family, you're going to hear from us. We will love on you. We will pray for you. We will stand with you over all your dreams and your visions. And I'm telling you what, Heather and I, we constantly are praying for our partners. So please consider, if you're on the fence, join the partner family and let's do this thing together, both in prayer and generosity. We believe that God is going to make all your purpose, destiny, and dreams come to pass. We're standing with you for it. So thank you for considering partnering with us today. Again, you go to josephz.com. We have a lot of territory to take, and we want to do it together. God bless you. Remember, on a bad day, you're the best there is, and you are called to be and shine the light in darkness. I'll see you again next time right here as we continue bringing a now word of the Lord. God bless you.